We finally have the official info on AMD's RX 9070 XT and 9070, and while a ton of the leaks were spot on, it's looking like an epic release. Now, if you're interested in picking one of these up, I'll have affiliate links down in the description below for when they're released. They don't cost you anything more, and it helps the channel out. Either way, let's get right to it. First up, before I get into the specs and all that good stuff, I thought I'd quickly go over the architecture RDNA 4. And as you can see right here, it seems pretty clear that they very much focused on performance per compute unit, meaning not cramming a bunch more compute units in or cores or anything like that. I mean, compute units has cores in it, but instead of doing that, they just focused on each individual compute unit itself, which of course does explain why these GPUs, and I'll get to the specs of course in a second, but why they don't have as many compute units as you would think. Either way, as you can see, they heavily focused on this where it got quite a bit of a jump in terms of rasterization. We're talking, it looks like around maybe a 70% jump in performance, 60% jump in performance versus RDNA 3. And then in ray tracing, it got even more performance, and then a massive boost in machine learning. And this, at least partially, is likely why the FSR 4, the new upscaling tech from AMD, is probably only supported on the new GPUs. But talking ray tracing, you can see right here that we're looking at a 2x ray tracing throughput per CU. So there are quite a bit of changes here that drastically help ray tracing in their new RDNA 4 architecture. And then likely another reason why FSR 4 is only supported in these new GPUs is because they now offer support, hardware support, for FP8. So we're talking floating point 8, though of course Nvidia's newest architecture actually goes to FP4. Still, this is a big boost here. As you can see, FP16 from that 2x. Then with sparsity, we're talking 4x there. Then integer, you get more performance there as well. So certainly a big uplift when it comes to their AI accelerators. Moving on, let's talk FSR 4. Of course, FSR 4 is their new ML-based upscaling. This, like I've said in the past, is essentially AMD sort of conceding and saying, okay, Nvidia, machine learning-based upscaling is better. And with that brings FSR 4, though, like I said, it's only supported on their newer GPUs. And as you can see, they're actually making some pretty big claims here. For one, you can kind of look at the spires up here. You can see that they're more visible or better visible here than what they're calling FSR 3.1 native. I'm assuming that's like quality mode, and then obviously significantly better than FSR 3.1 performance mode. But they're actually trying to claim, and this is something Nvidia has done with their DLSS, that it even looks better than native 4K. So this is absolutely, which I definitely will say, I highly doubt overall that it's going to be better than that. There's still quite a bit of things that need to be done with this upscaling tech, but you can see, at least in this one instance, that it somewhat does look better, at least when we're specifically talking about these spires up here. They are more visible. Moving on, when it comes to performance with FSR 4, you can see that, yes, it is still doing really well. It gets the uplift that you would more or less expect. And not only that, though, don't forget, this may look amazing, like, oh my goodness, it's so much better, but no, because this is with FrameGen. That's why you're getting such wild jumps in performance. And when it comes to games that support FSR 4, according to AMD, we are looking at 30 plus games at launch. And within this year, they're looking at 75 plus games. So that certainly is pretty good, similar to NVIDIA's DLSS 4. But of course, like DLSS 4, this is only going to be supported on their new GPUs. And speaking of, really quickly before we actually get to the specs and everything, when it comes to FrameGen, one very interesting thing, and this is something that I really think is a big deal, is they actually have a new Fluid Motion Frames 2.1. And if you don't remember, Fluid Motion Frames is frame generation, but this is in driver. And what's great about this is that it is not just supported on their new GPUs, it's also supported on the RX 6000 cards, 7000, as well as their new Ryzen AI 300 series. And as you can see, it adds quite a bit new stuff. For one, it makes fine feature rasterization better, overlay handling. You can see this is AFMF2 versus AFMF 2.1. This looks significantly better there, but the really big one, if you ask me, is reduced ghosting. And you can see from 2 to 2.1, there's a massive difference. So this should be a really nice quality improvement when it comes to image quality. So that's definitely something that I think is going to be really good and probably something that not a lot of people are going to talk about for this. But speaking of the stuff people are going to talk about, that is, of course, the new RX 9070 series. AMD is announcing both the RX 9070 and 9070 XT, and if you check out the specs, you'll pretty quickly notice that the leaks were essentially spot on. Either way, let's go over this. Starting with the 9070 XT, you can see that it comes with 64 compute units, and given the performance that I'm going to go over in a minute, that may seem kind of unbelievable, especially because, I mean, let's look at the 7900 XT. That has way more compute units at 84. But don't forget that first slide that we went over where AMD really focused on performance per compute unit, meaning you don't need more, yet you can get more performance. And speaking of so we'll just cover the 9070 XT first. So that is 64 compute units, and the AI TOPS is 1557 TOPS. Boost clock is 2.97 gigahertz, so we are squeaking so close to 3 gigahertz. I can almost guarantee that third-party overclock cards will likely get there, so that's definitely exciting. Then when it comes to memory, I will say both of these GPUs come with 16 gigabytes. This one, the 9070 XT, comes with 304 watt total board power. Then we have for both of these PCI Express 5.0 times 16, DisplayPort 2.1a, and HDMI 2.1b. Moving to the 9070, you can see not too many fewer cores at 56, or compute units, sorry, 56 compute units. Then we have peak AI TOPS here. We're looking at 1165 TOPS. Boost clock is a bit lower at 2.52 gigahertz, then of course 16 gigabytes of video memory, and then a total board power of 220 watts. But of course, let's get to the really important stuff that you want to see, and that is of course performance. And starting things off with the RX 9070, just like the leaks we had sort of seen before, they are comparing this, at least in this slide, to the 7900 GRE. And you can see, which don't forget, the 9070 itself is the lower end model of the two, and it beats it by 21%, which certainly isn't bad, but we're still comparing it to the 7900 GRE, so kind of got to do a bunch of calculations to figure out even remotely where it is in terms of performance versus the others. But then we have, and this is of course 4K, but then we have 1440p versus the 7900 GRE, and that adds 20% performance overall, though obviously these are, like I said, overall. And I'll just kind of go over a few of these. You can see on the lower end Warhammer 40K, we're talking only 4% faster. But then F1 2024, we're talking 9% faster, all the way up to Dragon Age Veilguard, 26% faster. But then you can certainly see that they are doing better in ray tracing, though not any kind of absolute massive amount or anything like that we were sort of hoping for, all the way up to 38% faster performance with the F1 24, and then at 4K up to 34% faster. Though, of course, this is the non-XT model. Moving over to the XT model, we really start seeing quite a jump in terms of performance. Overall is 42% faster in 30 plus games, and you can see that here once again, though we are comparing this to the 7900 GRE, you can see F1 2024, we're talking 23% faster all the way up to 48%. And then in ray tracing, we're talking with F1 2024 all the way up to 66% faster, and actually Cyberpunk 2077 as well, 66% faster. So certainly a big leap there. Then moving on at 1440p, you can see we're talking plus 38% here, yet in ray tracing performance, it gets all the way up to 68%. And then when it comes to actual release dates, just like the leak said, both of these cards are coming March 6th. And hopefully the availability of these will be quite a bit higher than the 5000 series, especially because I've been hearing, I mean, this is just things online that I've been seeing where retailers have actually had these cards for quite a while, so fingers crossed that they really do have good availability. And now this brings me to pricing. Unfortunately, I'm making this video a day before the announcement so I can release it for the embargo, which is the announcement, and AMD refused to give us the exact number until that actual day, which is tomorrow when you'll be seeing this. But we have a huge hint for that price that makes me think the Micro Center pricing is from earlier data. Basically, AMD had their announcement event in China already, and based on the official pricing without the value-added tax, which we obviously don't have to pay in the US, we're looking at around $599 for the 9070 XT and $549 for the regular 9070. And it's funny because that was the price I originally had in my head that would make the card, well, really good. Sure, $550 for the 9070 XT would be better, but if it can deliver on performance, $600 is definitely not bad and way better than that under $700 price, to which that slide that leaked, well, it was legit. So I'm thinking AMD may have held out to see kind of what people thought and decided on the lower price. Either way, I'll have an official price and a pinned comment below. So let me know what you think by commenting on that there.